Okay, we're back on What If History Restarted. Last episode, there's just some development over here. There's also that conflict between Red Team and Lilac Maroon Team. That's what I'm calling them. Yeah. Over here, though, Greece continues expanding. They go up into kind of Albania and just explore along this coast. They don't go that far inland, but they do go around the Sea of Marmara. I think that's what that's called. So they know this water exists. And then they just keep being expansionist and kind of just pushing up. Nothing really happens in Sparta. They're fine. They aren't offensive or anything. Over here, though, more people just start exploring Anatolia till eventually it's only the this little northern chunk which isn't found. And so a new country pops up here. This kind of dark purple team in this over on the east side. Their capital will be right here. They don't have that many people yet, but they are growing. Brown team also just continues expanding and exploring. There's not a lot of exploration going on in the more deserty region, but on the coast it's going decently. Exploring. They do also manage to found another major city. For once, like I said, those are becoming rarer, but they still are popping up occasionally. Meanwhile, the Indus River Valley kind of nation is exploring a lot, and they start trying to take a lot of the Indus River Valley, but the native tribes that live here aren't happy with them expanding, so they all kind of unite against it in this new country. I just made this color. Hold on. Sure. So this mint country now exists in the northern part of the Indus River Valley, really halting this team really halting the expansion of the not original, but the dark green Indus River Valley civilization. So because of that, they just kind of look elsewhere, and they start exploring down the eastern coast, west. I got east and west mixed up. This is west too. But yeah, they keep exploring down the western coast of India. They don't go too far. They don't really expand either, but they do start to explore it at least. There's probably like a trade ship going over here too. That. So the red team and the lilac team, maroon team and lilac team, they just had that big, well, not that big, but they just had a war, so a lot of people aren't happy living in these war-torn countries, so they kind of explore a little bit down here and make their own country down on this coastal region. Now, in this country, there's a lot more people from the maroon team, because more people there are unhappier with the result, even though I think they gained a lot more land, but they still are like that. And so they kind of start blaming the lilac team. They start considering going to war again with them, but they still don't because they're worried about the blue team. So not much happens there, for now, at least. Cyprus also keeps expanding up into Anatolia, bordering the new country, and just overall pushing up. Egypt slightly expands out here, as well as exploring down the Nile some more. We'll say like that. I don't know where the Nile actually goes, but I'd imagine it's something like this. I know there's like a split over here. So yeah. They don't expand, no one expands down here, but it is there. But this northern Egypt country thing, they do expand. Not down the Nile, obviously, but they expand westward. No major city, but they just find some land. I realize this city probably wouldn't be possible. Strait of Gibraltar is pretty wide, and especially for this early on in history. So we're gonna say that the capital's just on the very southern tip of Iberia, and maybe they found a major city right up here, so kind of bordering. But anyway, they explore a lot more of Iberia. They're kind of confused on how this land works. They think it might be an island, but they think the border might be like here. But that's obviously wrong because they explore up and they find some of France. They do continue exploring or expanding into the coast, not even the coast, just all around expanding. Obviously, they find the coast, coastal waters. And they don't expand down here, but they do explore some more of the North African coast. Getting pretty close to this country. I guess you'd call that green. The new country continues expanding up here. And another new country pops up full just of tribes. It's over here on the very tip of the Horn of Africa. We'll make some this pinkish color. So they're there. The capital is also on the very tip. They don't do too much yet, but they are there. The other countries probably do know that they exist, though. Over here, this country focusing on itself internally leads to them kind of losing track of this land out here. So, this civilization is really, failing. This coastal one, though, is doing pretty good. They explore a lot more of the coast. They don't go into the ocean that much, which is kind of unfortunate because they could have found Madagascar, but they don't. Instead, they just take more of the coast. Lake Country does also pop up another major city right on this little peninsula, I guess. It's kind of just a triangle. Egypt also, they want to go down the Nile, but obviously they can't because of this country. They really don't want to invade it again because they'd probably get a coalition formed against them. So instead of that, they kind of go for the next best thing and send out a major expedition over here. Explore a lot of this coast and take a decent amount of it. Maybe right down to there. Cyprus also continues expanding a little bit into Arabia, but not too much. They kind of just have this square around the island, well, rectangle, I guess. But slowly that's been expanding, of course. It started out just being like here. But now they have their sights set on like this. So, definitely ballooning up. Blue team surprisingly doesn't really do that much. They do explore and expand a little bit over here in the Caspian on the east side, but it's not anything crazy. Just a little bit of growth. Oman also not really doing that much. They just kind of expand a little bit along the coast, get a border with this new country. The Persian guys, there's a lot more exploration into Persia. So that's going pretty well. Not too much expanding though. Another new one does pop up right over here. Their capital's over here. And they go ahead and expand outward so that they can have an easy trading border with the Indus River Valley guy. Southern Indus River Valley, I guess. But meanwhile, over here, like I said, there's been that, conflicts over who should get what. And, Maroon team's blaming the Lilac team for a lot of their citizens leaving. But the Lilac team is still, angry about having lost a decent amount of land up here. So because of that, they kind of conflicts definitely start rising up again. And they don't break out into war, instantly, but it's definitely happening. And so it's kind of like a militia of citizens who are upset start to flood on into the Maroon country again, take this major city too. Pretty upsetting. Maroon country is definitely stronger though, so they aren't too concerned. The blue team says, if you, we'll help you, but we give us a second. If you attack them though, we won't help you because that's attacking their civilians. But the Maroon team doesn't really listen. They just go on, take out this peninsula, and that's, yeah, a lot. They kill some civilians too, so the blue team really does not want to help them. But anyway, Lilac team continues pushing up onto the eastern border, and then they start spearheading out to the capital. I guess you could call it that. And Maroon country kind of goes along I want to say the southern one is the Euphrates. So they go along the Euphrates, but it might be the Tigris, I'm not sure. And they try to meet up with the coast. They don't completely do that. But the Lilac team does flood in a lot over here. They aren't able to completely capture the capital, but it still is something. Maroon country does finally manage to meet up with the coast, but the defenses of the Lilac country are too strong, so even when they try to move up here to capture this city, it doesn't go too well. And they lose a lot of troops, and they kind of know that this isn't going well for them. So, because of that, they send out an invitation to this orange Persian country, and they say, if you help us win this war, you'll get a lot of land, and we can be allies. The orange country says no at first, but then reluctantly, Maroon team says that they'll give them some sugar and other stuff, other valuable materials, and by then, the orange team is in on it. So after just taking this land inconspicuously, they launched their invasion, a surprise attack. You can barely see that, hold on. They launched their surprise attack out at the capital. This captures the Lilac team really off guard, so they really don't have any time to react, and eventually their capital gets taken. They do manage to grab up the Maroon team's capital, but a lot of the troops are heading back to try and fight for them to reclaim the capital, so the red Maroon team is able to push a lot of them out. They aren't quite able to get this major city because they are holding out there, but it's beginning to fall. The Lilac team does manage to push this out, but this was undefended anyway, so they didn't really accomplish all that much. The orange Persian country is pretty weak, so they are able, once they send out a good amount of troops, they are actually able to push them back a decent amount. But by now, the Maroon country has gathered up a lot of the citizens. They completely reclaim their country, and then just start leading an offensive into the Lilac team. Lilac team does manage to grab this little bit back, but then then they have to turn around because they're very much under threat. And so the Maroon team managed to capture the city, reclaim the coast, and then the Persians take a good amount of this again, closing on the capital on one side. They don't have that many troops left, but it's always enough to just hold out here. And eventually the Maroon country does get their forces down, and they take the capital. And so this country is gone. The Lilac team. So, in the peace treaty, I mean, it's going to be a pretty brutal peace treaty, of course. And so, first act, obviously, Maroon country gets a lot of land. They take all of this, most of the country. They give this to the Persian team, and they justify it by saying that, like, since this is the capital and the biggest city, then it's fair, which does make sense. So, Orange team is happy. It's more red than orange, really, but, oh well. I'm probably going to keep calling it orange. Yeah, they have this land, too. Push up there. They're doing decently well now. Other than that, we just see this country expand a little bit more out into Arabia. And that's probably going to be it for this episode. Yeah. Well, I forgot about China. They continue to kind of slither along this coast and into Korea, because that's where, like, everyone cares about now. So they take a good amount of this Western Korean coast. And yeah, now that's going to be the final event for this episode. So, yes, goodbye.